Welcome to BC Hot Stove.
Do you want me to? I can't remember it, to be honest.
We're leaving that in. That's not getting cut
Okay,
out
that's
in post. Welcome to BC Hot Stove, and welcome to the beautiful legislature
Oh my
filled with our
gosh.
modern facilities.
Your taxpayer dollars at work, ladies and gentlemen.
Taxpayer dollars from the 60s.
Yes. Your great-grandparents' taxpayer dollars at work here in the media gallery.
That's true. This is the media. Actually, well, first of all, I'm Maclean. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Orca.
I'm Jordan Bateman, Vice President Communications for the Independent Contractors Business Association, the mighty ICBA. I've come overseas just to see Maclean.
That's true. Podcast. Greta would not be pleased with you.
I took a fossil fuel burning ferry.
You did.
I drove a fossil fuel burning car onto that ferry. But it's what do I have? It's like a little Prius. So it's like it's a hybrid.
Yeah.
But still
not good enough.
Still, how many greenhouse gases have been emitted? They pale in comparison to what we're about to emit now.
That's true. Now, we are in the back room of the press gallery here, which used to be a CBC and Omni studio. And I don't know if you knew this. Before that, this was actually the kitchen of the Ledge dining room. Where we are right now was the kitchen. What is now the press gallery used to be the dining room. So this was the galley kitchen.
Wow.
I think this was in the early 70s is when they changed it all up. Anyway, a little bit of Ledge.
Another legacy of Davy Barrett.
That's right. I know there's a photo of Bill Bennett. WAC Bennett. He was presenting a brick from the old press gallery which I will show you.
Okay. Anyway. If WAC says it's good enough for BC, it's good enough for BC, folks. Take it to the bank. Take it to the bank of BC.
You're already getting history.
There you go.
All right. Well, what's happened in this past week? Really nothing.
Only something in politics that happened. Well, Maclean, the big federal election was Monday, and obviously I'm a conservative type person. And like many conservatives across the country, I woke up Tuesday mad, perplexed. Not as mad as the Wexadeers in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, but definitely deeply concerned about where the country is headed. And it's another example of where conservatives have got to figure out how to be able to reach into the urban areas. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's kind of what decided it, isn't it? I mean, there was it's not even so much the suburbs or the downtowns rather, but the suburbs, right? There was not enough in the 905 in Toronto, and not enough in the
57 of 60 Toronto riding or something about Liberal.
Yeah, I mean that's the election right there.
Yeah. Like the rest of us don't even bother showing up. Yeah. Right? I mean that was it. In an election where there's a few takeaways, and so we don't have our usual structure here, but the one takeaway I'm taking from this is that there is now a very definite Liberal floor to their vote.
Yeah,
I mean, and they're basically at it.
Yeah,
32%. Like there was no. This is a tough election for any Liberal to try to attract a new voter to vote for that guy with that record and kind of that shameless stuff. So we now know what that kind of bedrock Liberal vote is. Basically they and the Conservatives start at the same starting line, and neither of them added any new voters.
I think that's exactly right. Did you see former Premier Christy Clark had some advice for the four major party leaders this morning? What did you think about that?
Okay, I love Christy Clark. I thought she had the tweet of the campaign when she came out, or the Facebook post of the campaign when she came out and said, just because you're pro-life doesn't mean you're evil.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing. This one I just found coming from her was just a little much. Conservatives have to have a plan for climate change. What was the Liberals' climate change plan in 2017? The BC Liberals? I don't recall much of one. And now we're stuck in a situation where John Horgan has basically shredded that thing, shredded the award-winning carbon tax, taken away revenue neutrality, increased it by $20 a ton, no end in sight. And so, it's a little tough for conservatives to, it's still early days. Maybe give it 6 months and then come up with that kind of.
I thought her advice for the Liberals and actually more so for the Greens and NDP was very on point. Actually, though, was that look, the Liberals have lurched pretty far to the left under Justin Trudeau, and so there's a lot of room in the center. But one of the takeaways here is that if you're Jagmeet Singh and Elizabeth May, is that maybe going further to the left, there's not a lot of room. There's no more meat on that.
You can't. It's gonna be tough to out-left those guys any further. You're right, and that left that big kind of mushy center, who I suspect just didn't come out and vote.
I think you might be right. They either sort of held their nose and voted Liberal,
or they canceled each other's votes out.
Yeah.
Or, okay, well, you do this, I'll do that. And it was a frustrating campaign to watch. I give Christy a hard time there, but the media need to look in the mirror as well, and they won't, but they should. all this complaining, like you never talked about substantive issues. You're the friggin' media. You set the agenda of what they talk about.
Yeah.
And you kept asking stupid questions about dual passports and abortion and, you can't blame them for asking about blackface, but
yeah. On the other side, two planes and all that kind of stuff too.
Ask about the substantive issues.
Yeah.
But if you're not reporting it, we ain't hearing it, and so don't complain that we're not voting on those substantive issues.
It's funny. I mean, you mentioned that, and I think the best way to sum that up is this campaign was kind of bookended at the beginning and the end by talking about Warren Kinsella.
Yeah.
Right. On the one end was the Greens for not keeping him, and the other end was the Conservatives for possibly keeping him.
Inside baseball.
Yeah.
Bull crap. Like, who cares who's working for these people? Like, it makes no sense at all. I also find it humorous when, I'm a friend of Hamish Marshall. He's getting a rough time right now. There was all this talk about, he helped found Rebel Media. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the closing of Sun TV. These guys went out and wanted to create a platform to keep their, stories alive. And that was Rebel Media, pre all the nonsense and racism stuff and crazy stuff that happened and it's distasteful. There are Sun TV reporters in newsrooms across this country.
David Aiken.
David Aiken, Richard Zussman, quality people.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break. You're going to give Hamish a hard time for trying to help those people keep their jobs. Like, come on. I mean, and Rebel went nuts, and he wasn't involved in it.
And it did. It went all the way
totally.
nuts.
And he wasn't involved in any of that.
Yeah.
So, we spend days, talking about these, connections, and it's exhausting. I think it's corrosive.
It's exhausting. It's corrosive, and it's also unrealistic. I mean, Canada is a small country. BC is a small province, and when you get to a certain level, everyone knows everyone.
Yeah,
I've had this happen to me, where something happens in Vancouver politics, and I'm not involved in Vancouver politics. I've never lived there. I've never worked on a Vancouver campaign. But you're friends with. I think in this case, it was like Mark Marison. Like, yeah, I do know Mark Marison. Yeah. But that doesn't mean we work together.
Who doesn't know Mark Marison?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like John Horgan knows Mark Marison.
Yeah. There's a picture of me and John Horgan in lacrosse jerseys giving thumbs up in the ledge.
This is not me disavowing Mark Marison. Mark, if you're watching, hi. No. But
I disavow Mark Marison and everything he stands for. That's what I'm taking from this.
But the point is that just because you know someone, that doesn't mean you're working.
No, exactly. And look, the same people who are complaining about Rebel Media then beat up the Conservatives for allegedly hiring Warren Kinsella to take out, the party that they called racist from the beginning. Yeah. Isn't that what you want? Like, give your heads a shake. So I'm a really, as a conservative voter, look, as a conservative, you feel like everything's stacked against you anyways, and you need the perfect campaigns to win. Mulroney in the 80s, that one Harper campaign where he had the strong civil majority, right? Yeah. Like you need everything to go right. Yeah. And when the media just keep tilting the balance against you, and look, CBC gets all their money from government. The Conservatives aren't going to go along with that. The $1 billion bailout of the news media. I get it, but it's bothersome to me that, they think that they don't have a role to play in this.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to keep beating on this horse, but it was amusing to me to see the same people who were tut-tutting Elizabeth May for, you should have kept Warren Kinsella. You have to be able to roll up your sleeves. And, the way the campaign ended here, especially on Vancouver Island, they may have been right.
Yeah.
But then saying how
they would have won a few knife fights if they had kept them.
But then so the same people saying that Elizabeth May should have kept Warren Kinsella, a lot of them were the same people horrified that Andrew Scheer apparently did, or at least for longer. Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense at all. There's this kind of hypocrisy all over this campaign, right? The Trudeau failings and the complete erosion of his brand. For the life of me, I just don't know why Andrew Scheer cannot have been more definitive on same-sex marriage, on LGBTQ rights. Look, I get it. Let's talk about the evangelical Christian faith for a moment. So, I grew up in a Pentecostal church. I still attend a Pentecostal church. I'm very uncomfortable with some of their beliefs and teachings around same-sex marriage. I'm a guy who is a wedding chaplain. I've done many weddings. My wife has done many weddings. And one thing you realize is that, this is the faith portion of this podcast. So everyone who hates this stuff, plug your ears. I firmly believe love is love, and where love is, God is, because God is love. That's what Scripture teaches. And I'm just not into this, like all this nonsense about rights for people. Like, conservatives should be the ones fighting for the rights of minorities. Like, because guess what? Conservatives are becoming a minority. We should be the ones out there saying, yeah, you should have the right to express your faith any way you want, and you should have the right to express love any way you want. Like, what do we care? Like, what is the problem here? I have a great marriage to my wife. Does the fact that, my cousin is in a long-term relationship with another one, does that matter to my marriage? No, it makes me happy for her because she's happy, right? Like, it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy that, Andrew Scheer's hands are tied and he can't come out and just say it because, what will the social conservative say? It drives me crazy that Mark Dalton, a BC Liberal, lost in 2015 because he wasn't, or 2017 because he wasn't conservative enough. So the Silcons put a conservative candidate in that riding and it cost the election, which cost the BC Liberals the governing majority. Like, listen, we're all going to have to give a bit, like in the conservative movement. Rural folks are going to have to give to the urbans a little bit and vice versa, and the same along religious lines. But all that to say, if you're outside the evangelical church, you may not know this, but there is a major shift going on in the evangelical church. Same-sex marriage is not the same huge, issue it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. People are coming around to it. Barack Obama came around to it. Joe Biden came around to it. The Clintons came around to it. So are many, many Christians in Canada. If you ask 1997 Jordan about this, it's a totally different answer. 2019 Jordan's like, man, embarrassed by what that was. And, but why isn't Andrew Scheer? Like, what is it? Like, it just...
Well, you're right. I mean, you mentioned 1997. I mean, 1997, Jean Chrétien, Paul Martin.
Yeah.
Both would have said
totally.
Defend.
But guess what? Society has changed. People have changed their minds. We realize, oh, wait a minute, it's not that. I don't even know why we thought it was a big deal.
Yes.
But anyway, so this is the frustration, and I think there's a lot of conservatives. Like, a lot of people are fiscally conservative and socially liberal are in the middle.
That's how I would describe myself.
Yeah, and that's the sweet spot for forming conservative governments in this province or in this country. So
both.
Yeah. And, one thing we should talk about is, like, I'm deeply concerned about the effect on the BC Liberal coalition. So BC Liberals are a coalition between conservatives and federal liberals. And we fight at election time federally, and then we all get back together because, by God, we're all better than the NDP. And we see what the NDP do to this province over and over and over again. Well, 3 times. I guess this is our 4th. Anyways, but if you now have federal liberals under Trudeau who are going so far left, and they begin to work more and more with the NDP and the Greens in order to, save their governing coalition, what does that mean for the federal liberal conservative coalition here? And I think, it's imperative on, the 40-something, men and women downstairs meeting in the BC Liberal caucus room right now to talk about that issue amongst themselves and be like, hey, let's stick together. Let's stick together.
So
right?
You're kind of, I'm going to paraphrase a little. You're worried that there'll be a Vision Vancouver effect on the federal level.
Exactly. Like, Vision Vancouver is supposed to be a centrist party.
Yeah.
And under Larry Campbell, when they were the friends of Larry, they were.
And then Gregor Robertson.
And Jeff Meigs shunted them way, 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 way left to the point where COPE ceased to exist, essentially. Yeah. So, that can happen. And there aren't enough conservative votes in the province of British Columbia to form government on your own.
Big C conservatives.
Big C conservatives.
Yeah.
And that's good because you want to have governments that represent more than just one viewpoint, that can have these discussions with each other and put on the table what is the most important thing to the respective groups, whether it's rural, urban, whether it's faith, non-faith, whether it's social conservatives. And you want to be able to talk these issues out. So it'll be interesting to see how this caucus deals with one another going forward. I don't perceive a lot of hard left BC Liberals. Like, I can't think of, I know there are a few federal Liberals, but I don't see them as being from that. They're more from that Paul Martin side of the party.
I think that's accurate.
But that Paul Martin era is getting a lot further and further away.
It's receding from view. Yeah, you're right about that. We shall see. We did have, this with that coalition, there's always going to be a strain. I'm sure similar conversations were had the first time Stephen Harper became prime minister.
Yeah, and the NDP are having it. Horgan is downstairs in his little caucus room with his 40 or so, and he's talking probably about, how do we balance the rights of workers and our blue collar union guys and the environmentalists, and how do we eat a little bit, mow a little bit more of Andrew Weaver's lawn, and like these are the questions that parties have, and Good. That's the difference between us and the States.
Well, you talk about fractures. I mean, that's one of the questions that both John Horgan and Andrew Weaver were asked, is that, you guys are working together and obviously get along. You call each other friends. And yet Jagmeet Singh and Elizabeth
I hear
May,
John Horgan even voted for the Green team. I mean, Orange team. I always vote orange. I'm colorblind. Oh my God.
but Jagmeet Singh and Elizabeth May are not friends.
Yes.
Because that got ugly.
That got ugly.
I received
And personal here on the island.
It did. I received exactly one piece of campaign literature the entire election, and that was the flyer the NDP distributed saying Elizabeth May was soft on abortion and social issues, that kind of thing. She might even take Andrew Scheer's call. Oh, the horror!
Oh my God!
I mean, this is the only brochure I received all election.
Yeah. I mean, they were in that ugly knife fight here in Vancouver Island, and you do wonder, right? Those workers spill over to the provincial campaigns. So yeah, you're right. They're having the same conversation here.
I mean, it's different in that they're not an explicit coalition here, but
they are.
It's everything that happens federally can make what happens in BC more difficult.
It will be interesting as we get closer to the 2021 election day.
Yeah.
How that begins to fracture. I'm not saying fracture to the point where Weaver brings down the government, because he's never going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But how it fractures, that working relationship fractures.
Yeah.
And I've noticed even in this session, the questions from the Greens have been a little sharper edged.
I agree with that. Yesterday, Andrew Weaver was asking about geothermal.
Yeah.
And
he didn't like the answer.
No, it was basically that, like, you guys have no interest in this. You're all talking, no game.
Yeah.
And
what I loved was he kind of gave her it out. So Michelle Mungo's answering a question. So Weaver's like, there's this one project near Prince George Valemont. And then she's like, great, yeah, Prince George Valemont. Thanks for reminding me of that project. Like, well, we are doing this one. And
it's as the election grows nearer, the Greens are going to have to find some points to disagree on. They can't go into the election saying these guys are great, we agree with everything they've done.
And last
Why
week,
would you vote for them?
And last week in the QPs, I chided her for being too hyper local, but Sonia Furstenau's tummy is upset now because of what George Heyman isn't doing at Shawnigan Lake.
Yeah.
And that's the only issue for her. Like, it seems to be the only issue she ever wants to really get into.
Yeah.
So that's another little kind of like hiccup between the two. And
speaking of hiccups,
yes,
and speaking of the Green Party,
yes,
I don't see a way that Elizabeth May can go into another election as the leader of that party.
Six times the charm.
Yeah,
6 is a charm.
If she was not, I'm going to suggest if she was not going to take advantage of the climate strike movement, circumstances are never 6%, 3 seats.
Look, it's hard because 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, or 2 years from now, whenever that next election is, the Liberals and the NDP or the Greens will have done something to address climate change.
Yeah.
And there'll be a plan in place, and it's a long-term plan, and we'll get there. It's not going to be the issue it was this time, because Greta you can't duplicate Greta every year.
No.
You can't. There's this feeling that, this was the most, and I think May said this is the most important election in our lifetime.
Referendum on
climate change, blah, blah, blah. So, you can't cry wolf again.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, that was important, but this one's really important, right? So like they run out of gas there. You're right.
And it's
actually, they may force Canada to run out of gas
even
too.
Setting the climate issue aside for a moment, which is difficult to do.
Yeah.
I get the feeling the national media has kind of had their fill.
Of her.
Yeah, they've just they're not cutting her the slack that she had given. And I mean, if you're watching this and you're a Green supporter and you're saying that's criminally unfair, they get sick of everyone after 5 elections.
Oh, totally. Look, it's part of the coverage we get here on the BC Liberals. You're right. I think they're tired of her. I'm not sure though. I don't know Manly enough. And there was one in New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island,
in Fredericton. I've forgotten her name. She apparently is quite impressive.
Okay, well, so maybe that's kind of a natural transition.
She's young, attractive, bilingual, and again, I apologize.
And not from Vancouver Island.
Exactly.
Which would be helpful. In kind of getting this through.
But I mean, her being on Vancouver Island hasn't. I mean, they got the seat in the 9-1. That's great, and they were close in 2 others. But I mean,
there was no breakthrough.
No.
And they were polling as high as 10% at one point, and they settled at 6%. Still twice what they got last time, but still 6%.
Yeah,
you're not growing.
No, and if you're rending your garments over PR and how first past the post keeping Green out, 6% doesn't get you much influence in any PR system.
And
nor should it.
And frankly, if you're lamenting PR, you have to ask yourself: do you really want Andrew Scheer to have more seats than Justin Trudeau?
Well, and if you're upset that however many, I think it was 1.2 million people voted Green and got 3 seats. How many people voted for the People's Party? I think it's it's less. It's like 800,000, but
shame.
it's true.
Yeah, no, I know. You're right. You're exactly right. So
I am happy that we have a system that rewards big national consensus building parties.
Yeah,
and
except
that
the bloc.
Yes, well, fair enough. But they're a regional party, and that is a weakness. But
do you think Scheer hangs on?
Not without showing that he's going to change.
Who's going to put the knife in him? Like, who's the George Abbott? Who's going to put the knife in him?
I don't know.
Because you have to have someone who puts a knife in the leader, knowing full well that they will never lead themselves.
Yeah.
Abbott was foolish. He thought he could lead that coalition after he put the knife into Christie.
That's true.
Or into Gord. It was Plunkett who put the knife into Christie. He also did not lead the coalition after. He's leading BC somewhere. I'm not sure where. But, you have to have that person, number one. And number two, you have to have that successor. And I'm not sure who, they had 13 candidates last time, and none of them were setting the world on fire.
No, that was part of the problem.
Yeah,
I think it's hard. The Democrats are experiencing this in the States right now. When you have that big a field, it is really hard for anyone to build.
It's like if you have two quarterbacks, you actually have no quarterbacks.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
The Roberto Luongo and Corey Schneider.
Yeah.
There is no lack.
Yeah.
So I think if I was
look at you using a Canuck reference, Calgary Flame fan.
I've had 10 years here now.
Slowly, folks. We'll get them.
It's never going to happen. But I think they need to have maybe 2 or 3 high-profile people running.
Yeah.
If it's a field of 20,
you have to have McKay, maybe a Michelle Rempel. Could Rona Ambrose come back? I don't think so.
Everyone, you seem to talk about that. And the fact that you mentioned Lisa Raitt. At some point.
Yeah, Lisa Raitt, but she lost her seat.
But Jagmeet Singh, you don't have to necessarily have seats.
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. I'm saying it's not insuperable.
Yeah, Jane Philpott's unemployed now. So
Jody Wilson-Raybould could use
ideally it'd be someone from outside the Harper years.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've heard James Moore's name bandied
James
about
Moore
as well.
gets floated a lot, but I think James Moore's pretty happy at home. I've seen what his work he's doing with Denton's. He seems, every time I see James Moore, he's got a big smile on his face, and that wasn't the way when they were in government. So I would be surprised. But James, if you're out there,
I think someone like a Michelle Rempel would be an interesting choice.
She would not take any of this sass from these other guys, that's for sure.
Yeah, and
she's kind of like she's got a little bit of the Elizabeth May frenetic energy.
Okay.
But
I was wondering,
but much more like her barbed sting.
It's true.
She can land a punch. I'm a big Michelle Rempel fan, but it's only based on social media.
In her effectiveness, I agree with you. But the fact that she is a still relatively young woman, it's a good look.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you have a photo. So now, guys, I'm at the Legend. Apparently, Maclean has like a press gallery photo or a gallery photo.
Oh, at 10:30.
So what is that? What is that all about?
Let's say every year, or at least every other year, we gather everyone for a group photo.
Just the press gallery.
Yes, just the press gallery, and they have them
because you also do the one in the Ledge gallery, and you also.
Oh no! Yes, that's right. This is just the press gallery.
Okay.
And this is cool because as you walked up the stairs here, you go past gallery photos that date back to 1910.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Right, so
I think it's cool.
I gotta place my bets here. I predict at least 4 bear arms in this photo.
It would be kind of appropriate.
It better be.
Luckily, I brought the guns today.
That's right. If I see Shannon Waters on my way out and I don't see bear arms, I'm like, what the heck? This was a chance to get in squats.
Shining moment in the sun.
This could have proved it forever.
And this photo is happening indoors, which is not always the case. So.
Oh, down Rotunda?
Yeah, in the library.
In the library, nowhere where the public could actually see you and throw things at you.
Exactly.
That's just I like the behind the scenes stuff at the legislature. It's like, I always joke around that I've come overseas to visit, and it's like a weird, different place. Last night we come in and we're here with we're doing ICBA board meetings this week, and our president Chris Gardner is here with us, and Tim McEwen, our VP policy, and Chris and I text Tim like, hey, you want to go for dinner? He's like, oh no, I'm already at my 3rd reception of the evening. Guy's a pro. Like, he knows where these receptions are. He's hanging out with the consulting engineers. I guess the nurses union had one.
A government town when the government is sitting it's
a feast, man.
You don't need to buy groceries.
It's a feast. I guess there's like breakfast and there's like lunch. And true. We were talking to Jazz Joe Hall. He'll kill me for this story, but he was like, he's looking trim, and he's like, I had to take off kind of the freshman 8, the freshman 10. So he's doing a lot of door knocking in order to trim down after all these receptions. So like it's quite a life these guys lead. Like what we saw David Eby in our hotel.
Oh yeah.
Well,
there's only so many. Victoria's a small town.
Like, can I get a picture with David Eby after everything I've said about him? Where it's like, what I would love is like him like lurking behind me, and then a picture of me like, and then I could hashtag EBGBs. Like, it looks scary.
He might even go for it.
He might. He's got a good sense of humor.
He does actually.
Will he be wearing yoga pants when we do that? I don't know. Last election feedback. I think Scheer is. I just don't know how Scheer can hold on. The funny thing is Singh, right? By all rights,
we haven't talked about this at all.
Jagmeet should be dead in the water, but because the expectations were so low, he can lose half his seats.
That's the viewpoint that the NDP seem to have decided they're going to take, is that they are judging it based on thinking they were going to be wiped out a couple months ago.
And now they're in the swing position.
But like, I look at it from, they had 95 seats 2 elections ago. They had 44 with Thomas Mulcair, which he got fired for.
Yes.
And now they're at 24.
24. Yeah.
And so
I wish Mulcair had been the leader in this campaign.
I think that would have been a big change, big difference.
The old prosecutor prosecuting the case on SNC Lavalin and on blackface, all these different things, like a
Quebecer.
Why were there no ads on blackface?
I don't have a good answer to that question.
Like, why wasn't that on every brochure in immigrant?
I wonder if they thought that they wouldn't need to, because it would be everywhere, and they didn't need to be the ones waiting.
The media would be too negative.
And because what the NDP had done, I'm talking about the NDP specifically, they had decided to hold up Jagmeet as the one who could exonerate, which was actually a smart play.
Yeah.
But
so why not send out a card with Jagmeet like saying wonderful things on the front, and then on the back it's like compare the black and white picture of him. You're all like,
but the NDP have learned that it doesn't matter if the people like you. I think it's fair to say that most Canadians have a reasonably favorable impression of Jagmeet Singh, the person.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they want to vote for the party that he or she leads.
Sure.
And I mean, we're talking 15%.
Yeah.
And so the policies do matter.
Yeah.
You saw this. I said this somewhere else. There was at times he felt like he was running for mayor of Twitter. He's saying a lot of sort of social media friendly things. I said, that's great, but it's a bubble.
Can I tell you a story? So
you can tell a story that lasts 10 minutes.
TikTok is this video app that all the kids use, and they use 15-second videos. So I've been kind of looking at it from ICD point of view, like, is this something you can use for politics? Like, how would this work? And I saw that yes, no meme, and it's basically a song playing in the background, and it's like a guy saying yes, no, and then people hold up like little signs, there's like little captions of what they're saying yes to and what they're saying no to. And I thought to myself, this is an easy political thing. Like, I should do one for ICBA or for whatever. And Horgan, like, raising taxes, yes. Protecting the fairness, right? No. Like, I thought it would be kind of funny. So I run it by my 16-year-old daughter, the vice president of the student council at Walnut Grove Secondary School, and I say, "What do you think?" And she's like, "Dad, you only watch TikTok. You're so old. Like, no one wants to watch it for political messages. You're so old. Blah, blah, forget it." So I didn't do it. Friggin' Jagmeet Singh does it, and hundreds of thousands of views.
Yeah,
and he's like some sort of wonderful like social media maven because he did it, and I'm like, never listen to your children. That's the message from this podcast. Well, don't take political advice from 16-year-old girls.
She could have, if you had done it, you could have gotten 15% of the vote.
Yeah, it's just one of the things. That's going to bug me for a while, and I'm going to go and speak with her. Actually, I've been here and we haven't seen each other much since election night. I'm going to go back and demand answers.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. You could have. That's the fourth place party. You could have had.
I could have had that
a taste of that success.
Fourth place vote. It is amazing when you're retired from public life, from political life. The emails and texts you get around election time, like, you should be running. No. Like, to the 1,200, 1,500 candidates across the country, put your name out. God bless you for doing it. You're doing a huge service to democracy. Met someone here who was in a no hope riding for the Conservatives Mid-Island, and he's toughed it out, and he did because they needed a candidate in that riding, and he was going to do it. That is honorable. Kudos to you. But it would be difficult for me to leave my huge life and professional decisions in the hands of other people now. Yeah, it's a tough thing to do, and it's getting harder, I think, to run. I mean, it wasn't easy for you. I'm not suggesting it was. No, but I think it's harder now. I do. My last term on council, I followed everyone in Langley who was on Twitter. There was like 120 of us, and we just all knew each other. Yeah. Now, oh man, like, I've muted all sorts of people. I see Integrity BC took a swipe at me over something, and I'm like, it was a joke. Like, I was joking about the pavement being torn up at the ledge. And they're like, "Why are you?" and Integrity BC is totally in bed with Plecus, so I get it. That's their kind of thing. But like, really, it was a joke. Zussman knew it was a joke. Be more like Zussman. That's really a life lesson.
Could use a little more humor in the ledge these days, looking at people who shall remain nameless. But it's more tense here than it needs to be.
Yeah, look, when you're like, politics is a knife fight, so let's forget it. But when you're putting a knife in someone, you got to have a twinkle in your eye when you do it. And that is honestly that is very much the Canadian Taxpayers Federation years in me.
I think the first time I met you face to face, you described yourself as a happy warrior, and that has stuck with me.
You have to be that, and I think that's where the Hulk Hogan stuff is concerning to the NDP strategists. Yeah, because if he loses that happy warrior, it snowballs very quickly. But anyways, you got to go do a picture.
I do.
I got to go back.
I got
to go back and watch. Get ready for the QPs and.
Oh, that's right.
I thought yesterday's question period was the best one of the session for the BC Liberals. I thought they asked questions that affected many people, and I also thought the NDP were scrambling for ways to counteract it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's never, these are difficult issues for the NDP. I think they were a little more comfortable. Not that the FOI issue was good for them, but this is a little more relatable.
Yeah, exactly. You put $150,000 of taxes onto a company, and the company closes its doors. And draws a direct line to those tax burden. It's hard to. Yeah. You can say, well, we're even historic investments in childcare, but that doesn't mean anything to those.
You don't need childcare if you don't have a job.
Exactly.
All right. With that, from the former kitchen, now the well, I don't know what to call this. It's like a closet. The World Podcast Studios, the Press Gallery in Victoria. I'm Maclean K. This is Jordan Bateman. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.